Welcome to the Brazen Podcast. I'm Ashton, your host, and I'm so glad you're here. On this podcast, I dive into a lot of new and unique perspectives, chatting with different entrepreneurs about how we can be more strategic and creative in how we tell our stories, connect with others, and confidently share our work. This season, we're focusing on connection, and if you want to connect with more clients and collaborators to grow your network, check out the free connection challenge at brazenstory.com/connection. Let's dive into this week's episode. Okay, hi, welcome to the Brazen Podcast. I am here with Caroline Mays of Switchblade Lemonade, and if you have not seen her bio video or heard of her studio, you can already tell what her vibe is from the name because it's a fucking amazing name. Switchblade Lemonade is still, I just feel like you're the queen of naming things just from that. Like you're already done. But Caroline is the owner of Switchblade Lemonade, a defiantly unorthodox image crafting and bio salon, which is the result of one writer's bullheaded insistence that any paragraph crammed with titles, accolades, vapid musings, or arbitrary facts we hope sound good on paper is not only a boring square we're attempting to squeeze ourselves into, it's a coffin-shaped box we've agreed to lie down in. This explains why writing about the self is so difficult. Conformity is ill-fitting, stiff, and dead on the inside. But a story like the robust, complicated, and often feral thing you're packing around, it's very much alive. It hates the confines of tight spaces, and it will open doors for you if you open the lid you keep on it. So if you can't tell, Caroline is a bio writer, an amazing writer full of style, and I'm so excited to talk with her today. And we're going to chat about her signature approach to bios, which is the epic credential that she has been like creating for a while now. I think it's been a long process of like getting to it being the epic credential. And also probably our plans for the end of the world, if I had to guess, and how we approach sales processes, because I feel like we both do it in a really different way from like what you generally hear as like sales advice, but we also have read some of the same stuff. So I'm really excited to chat about everything. And you should definitely check out Caroline's work at switchbladelemonade.com. And also, I feel like I pronounce your name with like an extra stress on the Caroline because I know several Carolines and Carolines and they all like want to start throwing punches. If you don't like, if you like confuse the Caroline.
I'm so used to it at this point. It's like, whatever. You know, I've had people even call me Catherine. I'm like, okay, you're not even in the ballpark. So, reel it in, concentrate. It's Caroline.
It's Caroline.
Okay. Yeah.
So, well, tell us about the epic credential because I love the way you talk about it, but I'd love to hear it from your perspective instead of trying to repeat back to you something that is yours.
Yeah, thanks. And P.S., thanks for having me on your podcast. So yeah, epic credential is like, it's born out of this idea that we've always had to present ourselves in these bullet points or these boring paragraphs, right? And now as entrepreneurs, we have this freedom to basically say whatever we want to say. The problem is that people don't do that. And so, and we also hear out in the zeitgeist, like, tell your story, tell your story, tell your story. And these amazing brands are built on story. You know, you think about Brene Brown and her resistance to her own research, or Ash Amberjay and like the Kmart parking lot. Tim Ferriss has done it. Marie Forleo has done it. You know what I mean? And it's like, so we think we need, it's like people kind of don't believe that they belong in that space or that they can use their story because they think it's like
it's boring,
or it's too traumatizing, it's too everyday, it's too something. And so it's like they don't do it. And so it kills me because they think they need something like, I don't know, like amazing in order to kind of capitalize off of like their past. And so an epic credential is essentially like the power of story, the practicality of bios, and they merge. And this is essentially like the foundation of your entire business. And so anyway, that's what credential is.
And I love that you named it that, because it communicates that this is what gives you credibility. Like this, if you don't have like all of the letters after your name or whatever, like
Right.
no, people knowing your experience is what makes them want to connect with you. And it's what makes them respect you sometimes when they don't really know you yet. You know, it gives you that like foot in the door.
Yeah. And how many of us have, like, back when we were employees, were like, God, if I could just get in front of the person that I need to get in front of and tell them, you know, and they could like see me and talk to me, and I could like ask them what it is they really want, or what are they looking for. I can tell them what I can offer. You know what I mean? You want to have this like meaty conversation that you are not allowed to have. And anyway, this is kind of, I mean, it's one-sided at first, but you are getting to present yourself in a more three-dimensional way. And just to kind of comment on what you said, like, you know, for those of us that don't have all the letters behind our name, even people that do have those letters behind their names, like they don't,
It's not enough by itself.
it's not enough by itself. Exactly. You can't really build a brand on it. It might not even, depending on what people are doing, it might not even be necessary, you know what I mean, to mention them. I mean, it might be. But you know what I mean? It's nice to have, but it isn't everything. And so that's also part of what I say about an epic credential, is that it has less to do with what you've learned in school or your academic or professional institutions, and more to do with what you have learned from the school of life. So, and yeah, the wisdom that you don't even realize that you carry from having been through whatever it is you've been through.
That's so cool. I feel like, because I mean, you're a copywriter and a coach, but then everything we've talked about so far and everything about your approach to this it's about the external presentation of who you are and why you're qualified, but also there's a lot of like confidence in there from having that clarity of, this is why I do what I do, and this is why people should trust me and like give me a shot. And I feel like that's such an important part of brands in general, especially because I know you work with a lot of solo entrepreneurs, I think, and also people who do kind of speaking, right?
Yeah, I have worked with a lot of speakers. I'm not trying to. I've kind of veered away from speakers a little bit. But a lot of people definitely have speaking components to their business, you know. But a lot of people do actually have, like, you know, they're writing books, they're speaking, or they're doing none of that. You know, it's like, it really, when I write for people, when I'm actually the one authoring the piece, it's usually kind of like a corporate refugee type, or maybe someone coming out of academia. It's not even pivoting, but I am moving my business to kind of work with specific people that I write for. But when it comes to the coaching and people that want to do their own writing, or it's something that's, you know, slightly more affordable, like it can be any business owner that cannot show up and just keep saying the same thing that everyone else is saying, you know, and they're ready to invest and take their business seriously, essentially, because I don't understand how people get away with not doing it. So,
you know, I don't think honestly that people do for very long anymore. I mean, everything is crowded, and I know that's a lot of the angst that people feel about like starting a new business or whatever there is that they're doing. It's like, oh, well, so and so is already doing this and they're doing it so well, like why would I do it? But then everyone does have a unique perspective, so like if you fail to communicate that perspective, you are just going to be lost in the sea of sameness. And I think that's such an important thing to think about. And I also wanted to chat. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think that's why people don't do it, is because they aren't really seeing what's different, you know? So, and I don't know, they just don't trust that they are. And I can guarantee you I can guarantee anybody, if you can think, and if you can like if tell your story at least to someone, like me or me, that has a process for taking you through it, like you will discover more than more that's there than you realize. And it's interesting, like I need to do a like a video about this or something. I've had so many people that that were like, I've told this story so many times, I've never thought about it that way. And that's the thing, it's like people's stories get told like in their family, like at their wedding reception, you know what I mean? It's like you think you know the story and you don't. People notoriously fail to realize what is really special about the story, or it's like special in the way to connect it into their business. So, and that's just a fact.
Yeah, because I mean, once you've told something or heard something so many times, it's not special anymore to you if you're not looking at it a different way than you have all those other times.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's so funny that you said that, because when I work with people too, I have a completely different approach in like brand messaging that isn't a bio, but I still get the same response, which is, I don't have any special way that I approach my work. I don't, everybody does this. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, no, they're not. Like,
Yeah.
because you're telling me something, and I've worked with other people in your industry, and I know that other people aren't approaching it exactly that way. And that's going to be really interesting, but we have to get it out there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And this would be an interesting conversation to have about like you used the word message, and I was talking to a friend the other day who is in PR, and when she says message, she means something completely different, right? And so we're using the word message or messaging over and over and over and over again. People like kind of have this maybe general idea of what it means, and maybe because they have a general idea of what it means, they think they're generally doing it, having a message, and they're
That's a
not.
good point.
Yeah, and the same goes for, like story or brand. Like again, we use the word story all the time. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean report the facts of what happened from your life. And brand is like this totally weird umbrella term that means different things to different people. I had a client the other day, we finished up a coaching we finished up like our coaching thing, and she's walking away with an epic credential, a message, and a media bio, and she's like, I have to get all new pictures now. Like I can't have this website with this word, with this wording. And I'm like, that is correct. And she's like, I feel like I know what branding means now. And like she's been in business for a really long time, and so we can go like entire careers, I guess, not really knowing what it is.
Yeah, because it is one of like many strengths that you could have in business, right? Like if you don't have a cohesive brand, but you're really good at connecting with people, like maybe it's just been overlooked this whole time.
Yeah.
So yeah, then you build that other pillar, and all of a sudden you have a business that's like not going anywhere, but up.
Right. And if you are like, let's say you have this amazing network, like you've come out of college, or, come out of your MBA program, or come out of corporate with this network, and you've built your business, at some point people are like, okay, this is where I'm capping out. I don't have the audience to do like, the coursework that I want to do, or the speaking I want to do, or the, have the readership that I want to have. So, and they think they have this brand the whole time, and it's like, you kind of do, but what you really have is a really great network. And so like, how do you level up and, really go for this thing? So, and again, it's like, you can go for it really early on. Like I wrote my brand like at the, near the beginning, and so, I mean, a couple of years in, because I had to figure out what the hell is going on. But
Preach.
yeah, but it's like I don't understand going a decade without really doing this work. Somehow people manage that long, and that's great, but all
That's,
power to you.
it would be easier if they didn't wait that long. It would be such a smooth.
I think so. And I think too, the times are different, right? And
That's
so,
true. Like if you were
yeah.
the only person in your niche, then sure. Like no, you don't need. If you're the only person who makes zippers, like you don't need a brand. You don't need to convince people that you're the best zipper. Like
Right. And if you're doing it for a long time, you've got a lot of word of mouth, and that's good. But yeah, I mean, it'll get you. It all depends on the timing and where you are and what resources you have, So,
that's true. I
yeah.
want to get out like a whiteboard at this point because now that you're talking about like the different definitions for things, and you also used the word message, and so now I'm really curious because like my background is in PR, so I feel like I would expect that the way I use message is the same way as your friend in PR, but now I want to know.
Yeah.
What did
Oh,
she mean by it?
I don't know. She and I are having a separate conversation. We were kind of wrapping it up. Because yeah, she's PR, and I want to know more about what she's doing in PR because I want some more PR. But when I say it, so I have a completely different process for even getting to message, right? But the central idea of your business, like the reason you're in business, your whole like shtick, your whole shebang is like in your epic credential. And then the message to me is when we lift that out and kind of make it like a statement of like, hey, this is what I want you to do, or this is what I want you to believe, or this is what I want you to understand, you know? And so, yeah, and so it catches people immediately because it's on your homepage. It should catch people, right? And it should be a hashtag. It should be that thing that you're kind of known for. Like my message is uncage your epic credential. And so it's like that makes sense, like given that, and I unpack it a little bit with some copy beneath that. But it's that's what I want people to do is own the fact that they could have one and to let it rip. So that's what I mean by message. And but I hear people talk about message where I'm not seeing the message. And the same thing, I hear people talk about story that I don't see their story. I hear people talk about brand, I don't see their brand. So
Yeah, I think so. The way I come to it is, or the final product that I think of as message is a little different, but also the way I come at it is basically the opposite direction from you. Like I start with kind of what is the message to clients about what do they need to know, understand, or believe before they'll even consider working with you. Where do they need to be in their process of getting to the solution on their own or whatever. And then coming at it from, okay, this is what I need people to know about them and how I relate to them. And then in that, I also have to communicate who I am and like where I've been and why they should trust me. And so like your credibility. And yeah, and that's what
so
I
what is
see.
it? Yeah, what does it tangibly look like? Is it do you put it somewhere, or is it
So
something that's kind of internal?
So I end up with an internal thing. I do taglines and things like that, like smaller, like bite size. This is it in a paragraph or this is it in a sentence. But what I usually deliver to people is actually a series of kind of plug and play quick bites. Like,
Ah. See,
yeah,
I think that's more of that PR messaging from what I understand from my friend. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So we're talking essentially about two different things and we're using the same language.
Yep. And then stories, oh my God, that's a whole nother like can of worms to just that could fill up an encyclopedia. The way people are talking about stories now and like what does that mean? And the way I use stories, um, ugh.
Yeah,
Because
I know.
everybody's talking about brand storytelling. Like, and then you see, like yesterday, there was this guy on LinkedIn he wrote this whole thing about why your brand needs a story. And I was like, this doesn't really make any sense. I don't feel like, and then I look and like, this is a guy who builds apps. And I'm like, well, that's why we look at it differently. Like like,
Yeah.
it's such an interesting, it's like, I guess a trend. And so then everybody is talking about it different ways. And it's like, well, shit. Like,
Yeah, it is. And I think that's, if people were thinking clearly about their own brands, people who are using the word story, like, then they would try and distinguish what they mean by story. Like, I barely use the word story. Like, I will use it as a last resort if I've kind of plugged in other words to use. But I'm like, it's epic credential. I want nothing to do with the storytelling language anymore, because it was like last summer, I think I was reaching out to agencies around Portland, and they weren't all like this, but yeah, I kept seeing the word storytellers, and I kept seeing the phrase risk taker as well. And I'm like, I see no risks. I see no story. I see, like, what are you talking about? And I think that's why we are so confused and so awash in it. We don't even realize that we don't know what we're talking about. So, or we're not explaining what we're talking about, and so yeah, so it's tough. And that, again, if you are in this world in any way, any kind of marketer, it's just like, you have got to use your marketing skills and come up with your own language and step out of the madness, and just start educating on what you mean. I mean, that's what a huge part of my job is like educating. So
well, and you have
yeah.
done such a good job of it. Like, that is definitely one of your like magic skills, is turning this thing that we're all confused about, and then you made it into epic credential, which in and of itself is flipped on its head and totally clear, even though it's not basic. I didn't even sound right.
Yeah, because people were telling, it's like, because I was using the word bio because I refused to use the word story, and it was like, people would say, like, towards the end, they were like, this is so much more than a bio, and you're like, yeah, I know, but I'm not using the word story. You know what I mean? And same for, if I was going to use the word story. It's so you have failed to make anything usable if you haven't gotten to the point, the central point of, like, either who you are or why you're in business or how you're in business or whatever, so anyway.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. I'm just like, and another thing. Yeah.
But, and then something else that I don't think people even think about is, once they have that nailed down, it makes every single other creative or marketing project that they do for their business so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
It means copywriting becomes, oh, we are just taking a new facet, a new moment, and we still have the same message. We're still the same people. We're just putting it into a new place instead of having to reinvent the wheel every time you need to get something done.
Yeah. I feel like copywriting is another word, like, we got to stop using. I just want to leave it dead on the side of the road. You know what I mean?
An armadillo.
And be like, like, return to the earth, copywriter, and you can come back in 10 years once you, like, mean something again. But you know what I mean? It's so different, again, to everybody. There's so many different ways to be a quote unquote copywriter. And then people are using the word, again, it's like, I don't even know if I would call what I do. I mean, when I'm doing a sales page, like, maybe that feels more copywriter-y. But when I'm doing this other work, my head isn't even in that space, even though I am selling a person and what they do.
I don't feel like there's any other word, though, because you're right. It is so many things that now we're having to add all these, like, okay, well, I'm an email 10x copywriter, or I'm a sales page copywriter just for people who make e-learning products. Like, because there's so many areas to take, and it's not the same skill. Like,
It's
at all.
not.
What you do is not the same as another person who writes sales emails. Like, that's not.
I know. And like, don't ask me to do anything that involves any like strategy, like email strategy or like
That's
launching.
mine.
Yeah, I'll send them to you. I mean, like, that's not what it's a different kind of thing, And so, yeah, like, and I think we need to start being very clear on what it is that we're doing for people. Find the language that makes it clear. And so
sometimes I just want to tell people that my whole job is overanalyzing their word choice so they don't have to. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So back to what you were saying about once you kind of know the point of your business, like it helps you do so many other things. I was talking to another coaching client, and we had figured out, the Epic credential was done, everything was done, the media bio, the message was done, and she was just like, like, okay, like what do I do from here? Besides the fact that it like lives on your website, and she was so excited and just like, like I'm, I got to do this and that and this and that now. And it's like, yes, but what you're going to find is that since you have so much clarity on what it is that you are doing for people, you're going to find over time is that everything that you write going forward is going to be clearer, because people have a tendency, we want to reach for these very intangible benefits of what the work does. Like, I could wax poetic about like the confidence that you gain, and how like you show up differently because this story is kind of like it like lives differently in your mind. I could get real poetic and touchy feely about that, right? But it would dilute, even though it feels very powerful to my clients and those that are in the experience, it's more kind of experience words than, this is what you get words. And so having a clear idea of what you actually do, it helps you to strip away that tendency to do that and just stick to your ideas and your point, and then let people walk away with all the amazing nuance that it brings. You know what I mean? It's like, that goes back to that old idiom of sell people what they want and give them what
they need.
Yeah. So
you are absolutely right.
Yeah.
I feel like you're calling me out to level up my own stuff. What, the other thing about like the cobbler's sons have no shoes or whatever. It's so easy to ignore your own stuff.
It is. I get it. I get it.
Okay, switching lanes.
Uh-huh.
Completely different
I
direction.
can tell you're like, yeah, we have several ideas to cover.
I know. I was like, yeah, I want to talk about this, and I want to talk about this, and I want to talk about this. But like, I feel like you could just teach a master class without even trying. So like,
oh, thanks for saying that.
Oh, hang on. I'm just gonna pause for a minute.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I feel like this
is maybe a good segue into ROI, because you know what I mean? Like, we just talked about benefits, and
let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
You want to ask the question or?
Yes. Okay. So when I originally reached out to you about coming on here, it was after you posted about on Instagram an old picture in front of a very creepy shed. Not gonna lie.
Murder shed. Yeah.
Murder shed. About, you're talking to the wrong potential clients when they ask like, what's the ROI on this? And you're like, this is not that kind of show. Mm-hmm. And so then it would be cool if you would differentiate, because you just said you want to get to those tangible benefits rather than getting lost in like the intangible benefits. And so to me, from a strategy perspective, I think, okay, so when I'm working with someone on their like brand message or even on like a sales page, I'm like, okay, so tell me about your deliverables, then tell me about the tangible, measurable benefits, and then we'll work up to those intangible ones so we know what they are.
Mm-hmm.
But so how do you differentiate between those two? And like, I love what you said. Okay, I'm just gonna read your post actually.
Okay.
So when you're talking about your stuff, you said this isn't a landing page, it's not a sales funnel, this is roots in the dirt shit. This is, I'd love to have you on my podcast. Case in point.
Uh-huh.
This is, I've had your site bookmarked for years because I knew I had to work with you one day. This is an email from halfway around the world. I adore your work and I'm such a huge fangirl. This is a shout out from your heroes, like the Seth Godin quote on your homepage.
Tell me, it's crazy.
Ooh, I lost my spot. This is high fives from the most leviathan of thought leaders. This is your website shared in Facebook groups without your knowing. This is clients and later friends from other continents. This is people taking your ideas or words and adjusting them so they're suspiciously too familiar. That part isn't great, but you know what they say, imitation is the highest form of flattery. Point being, you are the emulated, not the emulator. In a world where there are supposedly no new ideas, this is an angle that belongs to you. Anyway, sure, these things alchemize into money, but I can't tell you how much. What you choose to do with the gifts of your epic credential are completely up to you.
Yes.
Oh, and that the chicken's name is Dumpling.
Yes.
Oh, right. No one can see this but me. It's a picture of Caroline in front of a shed with a chicken.
Creepy shed. That was
a very creepy shed.
That shed was so creepy. It was in the back of our house, and that's just where we kept all the chicken stuff. But yeah, I just got back from a bike ride, so I'm covered in mud and
with a chicken.
Oh, my girl Dumpling. Yeah, so back to your question of like, so what are the tangible things? And when we were talking about that, like in a different context, I mean like the deliverable, like what do you walk away with, and you walk away with, again, like this brand story for, like, this epic credential.
We can burn that word. It's fine.
Let's burn it. Yeah. As an epic credential, which you could spin that. People make videos out of them. People spin them into books. You can spin them into a talk. It's like, it's meant to be, you can tell the long version of it later in a book. You can tell the short version of it later on a podcast. You know what I mean? It's like that story that builds your brand.
It's a foundation that you build on.
It's a foundation, but if you're paying attention and you're looking, like, and you're out in the world and you're looking at brands, see who's using them, right? And like, watch for it because it's out there, and it works for people. Then you have your message, that thing that you're always saying, that idea you want people to get behind. And then you have a killer fucking media bio where it's like, anytime someone's like, hey, send over your bio, you send them this piece of writing that's going to punch them in the nuts. And like, that's, you can slap that on your website. So I call that the holy trinity of brand copy, because like everything else is like sales page and email and, kind of all the extras that shoot out from it. But that's what you need to be like dialed in.
That's your onion.
And so anyway, that's what I meant by like the tangible stuff, right? And the tangible idea, right? Like, uncage your epic credential is a tangible idea, rather than like, tell your brand story or whatever. And so there's that. And then when I was talking about ROI, when people ask me that, and it's not very often, first of all, I just feel so weird. I'm not going to be one of those people that's like, hey, do this and you're going to make your first million or your first whatever, like 6 figures. I just can't. I can't. And so I think anyone worth their salt these days who's been in the game long enough, they know that there's no silver bullet. And so that to me is like, they're either coming from a really hyper corporate-y business environment. And so it's like, they're just kind of, I don't know, it's like this really swaggery businessy question to ask, like, what's your ROI? And it's just like, I don't know, what are you willing to put into this? Like, if you think we're going to write this and you're going to plop it on your website and you're going to kick back, and the money's going to come rolling in, like, you're delusional. like you're very green in this territory, right?
And also people who've been telling you that they could do that were lying to you, because no single service is like you said, the silver bullet. Everything is a different pedestal that you're building.
Yeah, and I don't know what your, like what your business model is, and I don't know if your customer service is shit, and I don't know if your talks suck. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much that goes into this, right? And so, but what we're doing is we're going to give you the holy trinity of brand copy, and I work with really great people. So all of my people, like, they're legit, they have ideas, they have stories, you know what I mean? So it's not like, I always feel good about my people, and like what we're doing together and what they're gonna go out in the world and do. And even now more so than ever, like I don't know, I'm working with who I want to be working with. And so, yeah, because they know, like, okay, I need to get these ducks in a row and go out and do this thing. That said, I was talking with one of my coaching clients the other day, and she was like, I started using the language that we talked about in our very first meeting, and I just sold my highest client, so this is already paid off. You know what I mean? It's like those things happen, and that's great, but I'm not gonna offer you a guarantee. I'm gonna offer you great writing. What you choose to do with that is up to you. And yeah, like,
And the thing is, even if you could offer that guarantee, like, doing so would attract it would almost like take the responsibility off of the client to then do something with that credential. And so then you have a different attitude coming into the work of like, well, she's just gonna do it for me and be my business, so like I don't have to think about this, I don't have to actually put in the work that is required. And for something as in depth as your epic credential or your brand message or like whatever, it has to be a two-way street or you wasted your investment. Like, so you don't want to end up with that, because then you have unhappy clients.
Right. Well, that's such a good point. And that was actually a second point that I wanted to make, was like,
sorry.
No, because I had lost my train of thought. It's like, anyone who's asking you that, it's like, what are you in it for? Do you have something to say, or are you only going to invest in like your ideas if there's a return on it? You know what I mean? So if you can just show up and like whatever, spout the same crap everyone else is saying, and that works for you, then then you're going to do that. Like, I'm the type of person, I could be in a room full of 1,000 people and be handed some construction paper and told to like given instructions on how to like make a Valentine's Day card, right? Like we used to when we were kids. And it's like, I cannot for the life of me just follow the instructions and make a card like they tell me to do it. You know what I mean? Like, this is how you cut out the snowflake and it's like, I'm going to have to just put my spin on it, and I think my people desire that because they see the benefit in doing that, and they are tired of spinning their wheels on what it is that they actually want to say, and they are ready to move forward and like kind of position themselves as an expert so that they can create those opportunities out in the world to, like I said in that post, like, get their mailing list going, like, talk to the right people, have people reach out to them and want to talk to them, have stalkers, like that much I have experienced. And so it's like, yeah, that's what
and
I
all
feel.
of those are the boring like ROI things, like you were saying, but I feel like your style is a lot of that too, like just the way, exactly what you said, you're just not going to do it the normal way, and that comes out in your writing. And so then I love your style.
Thank you. But you know what though, it's like my style, I don't want people to think, and this is why I love coaching, it's because it's like people get to write their own stuff, right? But I've got my hands in it, and I'm like, okay, you set me up to say this thing, and we got to say this thing because this is what you need to say right here. You know what I mean? And so, and usually it's from those lines that the message can come out of. So I get told a lot like, oh, you're so edgy, you're so like irreverent, or whatever. And that may be true. But anytime you are just being direct, you are different. You know what I mean? And so you can still show up in the way that you can still write the way that you write. You can still, talk the way that you talk. But when you are direct, you're going to have an edge, and that doesn't mean that you have to sound like me at all. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It does, because when people don't have that clarity, so going back to what we were talking about way at the beginning, that when you have this message or you have this bio or epic credential and you know exactly what the fuck you're saying every time you enter a conversation, suddenly you have the room to have your own style and to be really direct, and you don't have to kind of hedge because you're still not sure about your own, like, your foundation. It's not shaky. So then you can just be like, yeah, punchy with that message because I know what it is.
Right.
Like the footwork.
Yeah.
You give people the footwork of their language.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And it's like, everyone's like, oh, be different, be unique, blah, blah, blah. That's a lot of pressure. Just be direct and you're already there, Say what you need to say and you're there. You're already edgy, So I'm using air quotes over here,
You don't have to get a studded belt and
and you don't have to, it's I mean, I always encourage creative writing class. I think everyone could stand to work on their writing, online. I mean, I'm always working on mine. Like, it's not like you arrive like, now I am the perfect writer,
I'm done.
Yeah, I'm done. I got my badge and I'm here. But yeah, if you can just get the language that cuts to the heart of what you want to say, then you're done. You're there.
Switchblade. So
yeah. Switchblade Lemonade. Exactly. So anyway, I need to write a post about that. I just feel like it's, again, people kind of feel like they need this I don't know, they need this other identity, to be online. And it's like you just
another
need
person.
Yeah, and like I gotta swear more, and I gotta like be more like this person or that person. And I got to be the hardest version of myself, or I don't know what people are thinking, but it's just be direct and you'll have taken care of it. So
yeah, I think that's a good point to end on because we're right at an hour.
Okay.
So
perfect.
Yeah, that was really great. Thank you so much for coming, for joining me.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it. This is like the perfect second season launch episode.
Yeah.
And eventually we're gonna have to do a whiteboard session where we're like redefining everything. We'll just send it out to everyone and be like, these are the new words now.
These are new words, and then you need to figure out how you specifically are going to use them. You know what I mean?
Yes. So. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ashton.